So, welcome everybody. Very excited to be here and have a wonderful panel for all of you. We're talking about Beyond Capital, Europe's next wave of founders, but also the investments. And I think it can be very exciting that we have here a wonderful panel. We have here to my right, Mohadizeh Abdullahi from partner at Giant VC. And we thought we'd make a quick elevator pitch. Maybe give us your little pitch.
I'll give you a little pitch. Giant Ventures, we're a transatlantic fund investing in purpose-driven founders looking to build in the next mega trends of the future. We invest across seed to Series B, across the US and Europe. And for us, these mega trends are everything across energy, automation, intelligence, health, fintech, and decentralized finance.
Wonderful. I think every founder can learn from how to make a real 30 seconds elevator pitch. And we have a local icon here with Aaron Özkola from E2 Ventures. Please, your elevator pitch.
So like very quickly, for anyone who doesn't know, we invest very early on at pre-seed and seed across Turkey and Eastern Europe with the idea of kind of bridging all of these founders very quickly, either to the UK or to US, sort of targeting global markets primarily.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Also role model for pitching. Mo, Europe's startup ecosystem is really evolving rapidly. And what do you feel, how does it compare to the US and Asia, especially when it comes to fields like AI, deep tech, and of course also frontier technologies?
Yeah, I find that often in these discourses, Europe feels like the slower sort of cousin of the US and Asia, but I think that's definitely changing in AI, deep tech, and frontier tech. I mean, just thinking of Europe alone, like 25% of sort of the world's top AI research comes from the region. It's 35 in US, 30 in Asia, so it's not really that far behind if you really focus on it. And I think what I particularly love about Europe, and actually being in Turkey is a really great example of this, there are really strong density hubs. We're not a volume play, we're more of a density play. So we've got more STEM graduates per capita than any region in the world. So if you think about it like that, there's a lot of upside. We've got the Golden Triangle in the UK with Oxford, Cambridge, London. We've got Germany, we've got France. And I mean, even the applied application I see in this region with the VCs I've spoken to in the last couple of days is really exciting.
As you just said, a little bit slower, but the little brother, which is like when you look at all of Europe, right, with the amount of people we have and the territory, etc., actually very competitive and similar. So what is the actual reason? Is it the right access to capital in Europe? Like, what is the root cause of it?
The slower part, I think it's interesting because the 0 to 10 million ARR bucket, I think we do really well.
Yeah.
I think we're really good at allocating that capital. What happens is that how do we scale from 10 million to 100 million ARR? We kind of lack that commercialization, speed of execution, and scale. It's a symptom of simply the maturity of the industry. It's hard to compare apples and oranges, but I do think there's a lot of untapped capital. Like if you think about the pension pools across Europe, it's incredible. It's like 0.01% goes to European tech. That's like a rounding error. I read this stat in Germany recently, which I thought was quite cool. I think US pension funds had invested in 10% of the unicorns in Germany, and the German pension funds had invested 0.02% of their own pension funds in German unicorns. So a lot of capital, but it's untapped. So I think bringing that at the scale-up point and the later stage will be a huge driver.
Which is a political issue as well, because they need the permission for that, right?
Yeah.
Like, Aaron, this talk about like the US, that's very close to your heart because you help the founders from that region, but also in general, Eastern Europe, to very quickly expand to the US. Why is that such a core focus? Why do you think it's necessary?
Yeah, I think like I'll have a bit of an opposing view on this. So I guess because we focus mainly across Eastern Europe and Turkey. So the idea with the fund when we were beginning out was that this thesis that none of the countries across the region, which are much more smaller, sort of have local markets that are big enough to build big businesses in. But I think that also goes a little bit for Europe in general. So I think like in Germany, so I'll be a bit, too abrupt and too sort of out there maybe, but even in Germany, if you want to build a huge business, it's a quite a hard thing to do. Just because of the fact that, especially across sort of more blue ocean markets, just because of the fact that it's not only the investments or the regulations, it's that a lot of the pioneer sort of adopting customers and sort of M&A and talent is typically based in SF, in a lot of these sort of blue ocean markets. So what we try to do is take some of the sort of the strength across Central Eastern Europe, which is the talent. So as you mentioned, like there's a lot of good schools over here, ETH, for like Oxfords, Cambridges, etc. There's really, really good engineers. With kind of like these more success stories happening across the region, there's a lot more people who know how to do startups as well, who've sort of been employees and know sort of the game a little bit better. But still, they need to be based in US, is what we believe, and particularly SF, to do customer discovery with the right customers, because things change really, really quickly as we were sort of talking, which means you need to be there to adapt to that change in terms of what's going on in the market. So that's at least what we believe in. So that's why we're trying to do that.
But is it a bit sad news for the European ecosystem that you're taking our best companies and bringing them directly to the US? And you need also then their money, because usually it's quite expensive to expand to the US.
Yes.
So it comes also with taking on money from there. It's a very different strategy.
That's a good point. How we try to sort of balance that out is a lot of the teams that we have obviously have their engineering product teams across Eastern Europe, and then most of the go-to-market sort of teams end up in the US. So, they keep the quote-unquote cheaper, more economical sort of engineering teams across Eastern Europe. It's not only a kind of a price issue, like it's not that the salaries are cheaper only, it's that retention is also higher. So like in SF it's tougher to hire because there's a lot of opportunities and people tend to switch a lot as well. And over here, like if you're working in Romania, in Hungary, in Croatia, for a unicorn company in SF, it's a quite a good sort of gig to work at. So they really can hire really strong talent across these countries.
But as we talk about Europe, what we as Europeans and the European have to do, that this is not necessary anymore, that we can see at least our first step, let's say until a Series B or so, we can be successful here. We have big markets with France, with Germany, with the UK, the Nordics, etc., like Spain, Turkey, right? There are big markets here. What is needed? Like, what should the founders?
So I think why we do this, like, why we sort of help people move more to SF, is that kind of an idea of very early adopters and a unified market. So as Europe builds that more and more, so in Turkey, for example, so I'll speak for Turkey particularly because it's my home country and I can sort of shit on it as much as I'd like. There aren't enough enterprises. So if you want to build an AI infrastructure company, I think you'll find 15 customers in Turkey, and that's it. Like there's much other sort of customers that are willing to buy products. They don't really have that kind of a clue.
When you look at the circle of 3 to 4 hours flight, you have like 200-300 million.
Yeah, and then there's that problem of expanding across different regions. So it's not Europe has this problem of not being homogeneous, meaning there's different regulations across different countries, different languages, different go-to-market, different cultures. So I think a little bit of that has to be fixed probably with sort of different things down the line, is what I think. So that's the sort of the opposing view to that sort of European story.
Maybe if I play devil's advocate for a second. And it's ironic because we are a transatlantic fund, so I do fundamentally believe in doing both geographies. I think this is where you can actually use that arbitrage. But one thing I think is so interesting, these 27 markets that you talk about and then the fragmentation of it, I think that European founders have this particular edge about understanding cross-border expansion. Mm-hmm. It's because they had to do it from day one. You can't, if you want to have a venture scale business, you can't just be Turkey alone or Germany alone or France alone. So you have this mindset of being global from day one.
Yes.
And you have to learn those muscles and strengthen those muscles, be it understanding regulatory barriers, understanding cultural barriers, even tax, like simple things that you have to get your head around so early as an early stage founder, that in the US, I think that unified but also incredible capital intensity allows you to expand rapidly. But actually, if you look at the stats, European founders have almost 45-50% of their now turnover coming from cross-border money.
Yep.
So they've learned how to expand. I spoke to some Turkish VCs again recently. This has been my personal sort of market research being here. But they said that they had examples in their portfolio of going to the Middle East, going to Singapore, going to all parts of Asia within like maybe sometimes less than
Because you
12
have
months.
this mindset, right?
The
for
mindset of expansion, because they have to. It's out of
Yeah,
necessity.
it's a necessity.
Yeah,
It's a
and
necessity,
the other question is now with times of AI and the products are much more digital, right? Do you even need that you have to have a physical office and present in every market, right? We see often companies that literally from day one global because people can sign up, use their product, and just become a customer with a credit card. And more as you just touched on that point, what unique opportunities do European founders have today to scale globally?
Yeah, I think capital efficiency is one you just mentioned. So it's always annoying saying that it's cheaper talent because it's not really cheaper talent. I hate that phrase. It's a little bit of an arbitrage you can definitely take advantage of as a founder building up. You've got these density hubs which we mentioned. We've got this crossover knowledge which I already mentioned. But also I actually think regulation can be great up to a point. One thing I mean by that is trust. In the world where AI companies are growing super rapidly, Europe has a little bit of an advantage on building these ethical trust institutes quite early on. So I think as the bubble grows and there's a small chance it bursts and we're all running away a little bit scared, there might be some more European companies that are sustainably lasting in the ecosystem because of the AI trust foundations that we're building in Europe that maybe the US isn't. So I think taking advantage of that.
I mean, what is trust? Trust is a confident relationship with the unknown, right? And we all don't know what will happen the next 1-2 years as the pace of all these things develops so fast is really crazy, right? I mean, nobody of us can predict that crazy what's coming up in the next 2 years and how it will change the society, basically. And Aaron, where do you really currently see the most exciting frontier opportunities for early stage founders from Turkey, but also, of course, Eastern Europe, your market? I mean, you're obviously with your team in there looking for the next hot bets that is obviously AI defensible, hopefully, for you and your LPs. So what do you see there? What are the topics? What are the founders that excites you?
Yeah, I think like things that we've looked at, so putting aside the sort of the Turkey bucket, which is mostly gaming, because we do invest in things that are global from day one, but gaming has this advantage of being global from day one because you don't need to relocate anyway to sort of build a large company, and there's a big gaming talent in Turkey. So that makes up around like 15-20% of the fund. The rest is basically AI, dev tools, infrastructure companies. I think what we've been looking at, especially over the last couple of years, have been around either application layer or infrastructure layer AI companies, basically. So we invested, for example, in this company called Fal.ai, Features and Labels, who are doing really, really well. Turkish founders, Turkey team, also SF team. They grew crazily over the last years, doing generative media infrastructure. So if you want to do any kind of video or images with prompts, they enable the sort of the open source models, model pipelines, inference on the back end. They grew crazily, like from 2 million in annual revenues to 200 now in a year, practically. So we're seeing a lot of those. Like the level of growth in terms of some of these companies are crazy. And then we've been seeing, I think, over the last years to 6 months to a year, a lot more robotics companies, let's say, like things around robotics, either sort of that might be synthetic data, that might be kind of infrastructure for model training, that might be sort of, smaller sort of use cases of hardware robots as well, or even like humanoid robots as well. But we are seeing a lot of these things actually across Europe as well. So sort of, it used to be that, you would build humanoid robots basically in SF and nowhere else. But now with China and hardware and sort of manufacturing becoming easier, I think a lot more people are sort of trying to do these across Europe.
And we're talking about beyond capital, obviously, today, and that means also mindset. I mean, how is that when you take a founder that is like in Romania, let's say, for example, builds a startup in a very cozy and familiar environment. Now you take this plant and put it in the Shark Tank, literally in San Francisco, where literally everything, as you said, people stealing your people, right? They're paying ridiculous amount of money. Everything is faster. Sales works completely different, right? Like how do you train them or manage that they're not getting eaten up and beaten up right away when they land?
Yeah. So I mean, not very well. So it's always jokes aside, it's always a tough sort of ordeal for someone to go from sort of live somewhere else and sort of become accustomed to that kind of network. So what we try to do typically is, so there are two sort of different camps. There are these sort of founders who have some sort of exposure to these success stories in Romania, Croatia, Turkey, Poland. So they've worked at a company that is based in SF, in London, in sort of New York, and they sort of know the playbook a little bit. They have some networks, and they know, and they have an idea of how to sort of expand to US and live there and sort of get into the right networks. So we do follow these success stories and hubs around them quite a lot, obviously, across Eastern Europe. And then the other sort of type of founder, if they're sort of first-time founder doing it for the first time, they have no clue. We do try, so the whole idea with bridging to SF is we do try to get them into the networks with these diaspora Turkish and Eastern European founders, investors, so that they get accustomed to the local ecosystem much quickly, or else it is a tough sort of, ordeal to try to find your way in the jungle of SF, pretty much.
And Mo, as you are really like all over Europe, but also 50% US, from a pure VC perspective, what are the technologies that you're most excited about right now, but also beyond, because you really have the overview of the entire market?
Yeah, I think it's probably best to answer that by understanding like why we do what we do. Fundamentally, we're investing in megatrends. We're looking for structural trends that are not changing, and then finding solutions within that where we can build strong multi-billion-dollar outcomes. One thing that you already mentioned, I think obviously this application of AI, the infrastructure layer, is fascinating. I think this is the role of AI and now automating, becoming a decision-making tool is becoming more interesting. For us, because we invest across energy, health, and let's say economic mobility, which covers fintech, we can see a lot. One thing I personally really love is the role of AI in things like drug discovery, even robotics. I think, now we're able to find molecules and test them on the human body without ever having touched a human body which is a scale which we've never managed to do, even to run clinical trials in a way that we've never been able to do. I think also the fact that now, again, this is a personal interest, but I see the human body as more like a building block, right? So we managed to reduce the cost of genome sequencing by 1000x. Next, it could be protein, then it could be the immune system, then it could be the general health data we're collecting. Right now, very fragmented, but I see a world where we can bring this together and essentially have like a human building block of like understanding our health. Like this is a thing that we couldn't have imagined even 10 years ago. So I think the role that AI can play in health is amazing. And then, of course, for us, climate is a massive one, but it's a different wave of climate. It's no longer about, green premiums and investing in things that need regulation to grow, but rather what is the second wave? Is it going to be around industrial intelligence? Is it going to be around robotics?
Resilience.
Resilience, yes. And Europe, again, particularly interesting place, right? Because we've got a lot of industrial knowledge. We've got a lot of sort of manufacturing knowledge as well. So I think that's where we can over-index and potentially become, again, a deep tech hub, and then take those incredible people to the US, hopefully not all of them, but some of them.
And as we talked about resilience, I mean, often these are people, you talked about medicine, biotech, etc., that are very deep in their labs, have super knowledge, or you talked about the triangle of universities, but also for them, it needs a bit of shift. Now becoming then entrepreneur and think about venture capital, how to build a company, and etc., to bring these people out there, make them kind of founders, right? And then playing the venture capital game and scaling globally. That's not just from a European perspective, in general, like a
This is hard. I think this is the exact point you were making about the US, right? They have this, I mean, in the universities in the US, if you go, like, the young kids that are building these companies are like studying and have this ambition to build a company from like day one. It's incredible that the speed, the ambition. We've got the same ambition, but it happens after the product is built. So it's like we spent all these years building this incredible product, all this work in the lab, and then we're like, oh, how do we spin this off? Instead of using that time as a parallel time of how do I make this into a product? How do I make this into a company? So I think it's just the stage of entry where we start thinking about productization and commercialization. It's an educational thing, right?
Yeah. It's a cultural
thing. Yeah.
Definitely.
Aaron, as you help so many founders really go global, what do you feel is the really single biggest mindset shift European founders need to really build global successful companies and global comparison? What is the one thing that you always see almost like a pattern?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a bit parallel to what Mo was saying. So it's that idea of having a very commercial mindset, of being able to sort of travel places, try things out, iterate, pivot quickly, work with different people, to build a company rather than focus a lot. Like obviously these guys or girls are very sort of technical founders, so they know what they're doing quite well. But they do need sometimes more sort of idea of
money mindset.
Yeah, a bit of a sales commercialization kind of a mindset as well.
And what gives you the most optimism about Europe's next generation of founders, but also investors, right?
Yeah, I think like the great thing about Europe right now is that it's definitely up and coming. So I think it was quite behind, like let's say 8-10 years ago in terms of that kind of a startup culture kind of vibe. I think it's changing a lot. In UK, definitely. In Germany, definitely. Across Eastern Europe, definitely. So I think there will be a lot more things coming out on a very exponential level. Yeah. So yeah.
Emo, what's your hope for the future of the European tech ecosystem? Make your bold wish and
my bold wish.
Vision.
I think just continuing these conversations and collaborations. I think the issue is that sometimes we sit in our silos. So if we can just be a bit more forefront about the challenges and be honest about them, I think we can wave the European flag and be, we're amazing, but there are things we need to improve on. So I think being really honest about that and working together. I think some geographies across Europe have done that very well, but I'd love to bring through Central Eastern Europe, and I mean, the talent there is incredible, the engineering prowess, so how do we bring this all together would be my ambition.
Yeah, and I think also they have to learn that it's not enough to be the best when others sell better.
Yes.
Because the US often has products that are not that amazingly engineered like from your Eastern European friends, but they're very good in selling and making it shiny and bright, and you have my credit card and want to buy the product. I think that's also a point where we can definitively go better. Our time is up already, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the audience for your interest, and great to see you. Great to have you here. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.